A little while back, I was invited to speak at an event for some local running clubs and talk a bit about Jog On as a podcast and how it all began. I accepted, and a few days later found myself in a room full of running club members, ready to deliver the first ever Jog On talk to an audience.
Good.
I introduced myself.
I'm Harry, if you don't know. I do a running podcast where I interview different people. It's called Jog On.
Made a brief quip about the irony of them selling cakes.
And then after the cake sale, we move on to a nutritionist.
And began.
I created a small presentation, so let's hope it works. I've got a bit of a checkered history of presentations. They haven't gone so well in the past. I've had a few blow up on me. I'm hoping this one goes better. One particularly bad example was I studied theatre at university, and can you tell? And essentially there was, to give you the summary, basically there was, we had to do an assessed warm-up, so it's quite an important exam that goes towards your grade. It was in about the second year it happened. I had my laptop and we had to do this like weird dynamic warm-up. You can imagine the theatre degree, it's all pretty a bit out there. And we had to do this warm-up, and I connected my laptop. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I still had Skype open. It was back when people actually used Skype. And my father decided in that 5-minute, very important window to actually video call me. So I'm starting to do the warm-up, and bearing in mind in a theatre course, you have essentially one other straight guy on the course, and it's just women. And it came up and it said Steve Father calling. And I turned to the examiner who sat there with her pen, and I looked at her really panically, and she just went, answer it. So I nervously sort of clicked answer, and before I could say anything, he went, hello, Trouble, how are you? And a huge image of my father, just in a dressing gown, projected onto the screen. And I went, Dad, I've got to, I'm imagining he's there now. Dad, I've got to do something. He said, oh, is this your exam? Anyway, so hopefully this one goes better. So let's try and begin. This is kind of how it all began, how I started a podcast that focuses around running. It does do other fitness elements. We've had quite a variety of guests on. For example, Scott Dawson, who's here with us tonight, talks about swimming around the Isle of Wight. So it does vary. If I think it's an interesting story, I'll definitely chat to the person about it. But a lot of it is running bias, so it's running first and foremost. So this is how it all began. So to start with, so I studied theatre at university, and I quickly discovered whilst doing athletics that I had a love of presenting. And found that they had a radio station, basically. And so I decided that I would join the radio station and start a breakfast show on the radio station. That was, like 2011, 2012, something like that. First show was awful, because first song I ever played had a lot of swearing in it, and that's a no-no on university radio. I didn't know, I just started playing it and then had to flusteredly apologise, kind of like the dad thing. Then the next song I played referenced hard drug use, so that was a no-no as well. So the whole first show was terrible, but then things started to improve a bit. And the whole time I'm doing the athletics as well, and I became captain of the athletics club, so they were kind of in two separate columns at this point, and I always knew that I kind of wanted to bring them together. So finally, after 2 years of making tea for producers and basically just hoovering radio stations and all sorts, they just said, just give them a job on the microphone, and they put me on travel news, which isn't actually that exciting looking back, because you're the kind of person just saying, down on the M3, we're saying blah, 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 and it's not as exciting as it sounds, but I was just really happy to be on a microphone. Quick anecdote, the most exciting that ever happened in my travel news career was, I don't know if you guys ever remember this story, but an emu escaped somewhere near Eastleigh. There was an emu out on the roads, and I had to warn drivers that there was an emu on the road. And that was the most exciting day I ever had of doing travel news. One day I finally got the phone call to do a breakfast show. They wanted me to fill in for a week. It used to be called Jack FM, then it became Sam FM. There's also The Breeze, but Bam Bam himself called me one day, and at the same time, the guy who was the sort of head producer of all the shows got fired, and it was his job to replace the guy that I was covering just for a week. And as he got replaced, the new guy that came in just had a stack of stuff to do, because he's in a brand new radio station, he's got to meet everyone, and he just put it to one side, like that whole get a new guy that can actually do radio, he just put it to one side, and his stack of CVs got higher and higher. I saw them coming in, people applying for this job that I was kind of doing on the side, and eventually they just said, you know what, let's just leave Harry doing it, that's fine, he can do the breakfast show. So I did the breakfast show for about a year and 2 months total. I have a clip.
Bam, bam! Look how close Harry sits to me. He's literally on my lap.
I once had to sit down with my parents. They said your sense of personal space.
Oh, really?
Very small. Like I talk to people very close.
Your parents said to you, Harry, we need to talk about your interpersonal distance.
Yeah.
Hang on though. How did you take that when you?
I rebelled completely. I stood closer than ever.
Okay.
I was literally nose to nose with strangers.
What's going on in your head?
I need to feel like I need to engage them.
Show me with Hayley now.
No, I don't want to.
No, because we'll end up I stop.
You're just going to grab her face by the ears.
Are you listening to me?
Bam Bam at Breakfast with southcoastexecutivetravel.co.uk. Back tomorrow when you wake up.
So that gives you a rough flavour of what the show was like. It was quite punchy, quite exciting. It was 80s music, and as someone who was unfortunately born in the 90s, that was something I had to learn a lot about. It was a fantastic opportunity. I absolutely loved it, but I always knew deep down it wasn't quite for me. Mainly because it's amazing to get paid a full-time salary, to get to talk on a microphone for 4 hours, but you are essentially just a voice. There's someone saying, you've got to play this song. And if you listen to a lot of commercial radio, BBC is still very strong, but commercial radio itself, whenever you listen in, you will hear a guy, sort of, a song finishes playing, he'll say, that was Coldplay, and now, like, do you like crispy or soft bacon in the morning? Anna says she likes soft. Is she mad? Next song, Rihanna. And it's a nonsense kind of 7-second segment. And that show didn't have that. And I knew that if I ever went to, there's like Capital and Global have a lot of stations, that's what it would be. So I wanted to take more control. And I knew the running had to come back in. I'd heard about things called podcasts, and I created Jog On. And essentially, it is a series of me interviewing different guests. So there's weekly episodes, and the podcast itself is a fantastic opportunity to sit there with people and talk about one of my huge passions, which is running. And it's finally these two columns kind of came together of the radio side of things and the presenting and the running. It kind of combines in this fantastic thing that is Jog On. So then we move on to videos, created a YouTube channel. So that YouTube channel is called Jog On with Harry Morgan. Then, well, I'll show you a tiny little clip. So this was a race I did with a mountain bike, and the bike broke halfway. So I ended up winning it. But that's on YouTube. So things like that, so high-end stuff. Because running footage for years has been terrible because it's really shaky and horrible. So trying to make that high-end stuff, and that's been fantastic. That started March 2019, I started doing the videos. So this whole thing is an amalgamation of videos and audio, and that's kind of my background and where I came from. If you want to listen or find it, one gentleman kindly said he had been and that he vaguely enjoyed it, which is a huge compliment because it takes a hell of a lot of time to create and put together. On all good podcast apps, including Spotify and iTunes, the YouTube channel is Jog On with Harry Morgan, Instagram Jog On Podcast, and if, a big final thing is, I do have a bit of a wait list at the moment. I've got about 4 or 5 people queued up at the moment, ready to do an interview with, but I'm always looking for people. So if you know someone who's got a great story, like Diane, for example, with 12 marathons in a year, 12 marathons, 12 months, etc., I will always be up for having a preliminary chat, and then if it feels like it's going to work, then we'll sit down and make an episode together. Bringing running in with having these amazing conversations with people is beautiful, and Jog On's kind of an expression of that. I look forward to introducing our next speaker. Thank you very much for listening. Yeah. I've written down tantrum. That's not that.